The wrench slipped from Tejo's greasy fingers for the third time that hour. He wiped his hands on his coveralls and picked it up again, cursing under his breath. The mining station's repair bay was hot and cramped, filled with the smell of burned circuits and old metal. Outside the thick windows, the orange sky of Kepler 442b stretched endlessly across Rocky Mountains. Tejo had been working for 14 straight hours. The station's equipment kept breaking down, and there was never enough time to fix everything properly. Corporate had cut their supply shipments 6 months ago, leaving the small crew to make do with scraps and spare parts. Most days, Tejo felt more like a magician than a mechanic. The heavy doors to the repair bay hissed open. 2 miners stumbled in, carrying something between them on a makeshift stretcher. It was covered in dirt and rock dust, but Tejo could see metal underneath. "Found this thing 500 meters down," said the first miner, breathing hard. "Looks like some kind of robot." They set their burden on the main work table. Tejo brushed away the dirt with his hands, revealing sleek metal beneath. This wasn't like any mining robot he had ever seen. The design was smooth and elegant, made from some kind of silver alloy that didn't seem to have a scratch on it despite being buried underground. "Probably worth good money for scrap," the second miner said. "That metal looks expensive." Tejo ran his fingers along the robot's surface. Strange symbols were carved into the metal, forming geometric patterns that seemed to flow like water. The craftsmanship was incredible. Someone had put real care into building this machine. "Where exactly did you find it?" he asked. "Deep Shaft 7. We were digging for rare earth deposits when we hit this pocket. Thing was just sitting there like someone had placed it yesterday." The first miner shrugged. "You want it? Or should we take it to the scrapyard?" "I'll take a look," Tejo said. "Give me a few days." The miners left, already talking about their next shift. Tejo was alone with the mysterious robot. He pulled out his scanner and ran it over the metal surface. The readings made no sense. The scanner couldn't identify the materials or even give him a proper structural analysis. He found what looked like an access panel on the robot's chest and carefully pried it open. Inside was a maze of circuits and components unlike anything in their technical manuals. The design was compact and efficient with no wasted space. Whoever built this understood engineering at a level that impressed even Tejo. At the center of the chest cavity sat a power core that glowed faintly blue. It was still active after all this time underground. Tejo had never seen anything like it. The energy readings were off the charts but somehow contained perfectly within the crystal structure. He spent the next several hours mapping the robot's systems. The neural pathways were incredibly complex, more like a human brain than a simple computer. The limbs were articulated with precision joints that would cost a fortune to manufacture. Everything about this machine screamed advanced technology, but it was clearly damaged. Several circuit boards were cracked, and one of the main processing units had been completely destroyed. Fluid lines were severed and the left arm hung at an odd angle. Whatever had happened to this robot, it had been catastrophic. Most people would have stripped it for parts and called it a day. But Tejo couldn't shake the feeling that this machine deserved better. Someone had built it with love and skill. It seemed wrong to just tear it apart. He worked through the night, cannibalizing parts from broken mining equipment to replace the damaged components. The robot's systems were so advanced that his crude repairs looked like patches on a work of art, but slowly, carefully, he brought each system back online. The hardest part was the neural processor. He had to reroute dozens of pathways around the damaged sections, creating new connections with spare circuit boards. It was delicate work that required steady hands and patience. One wrong move could destroy the entire network. As dawn broke, over the mining station, Tejo made the final connection. He had been working for 18 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination. His back ached, and his eyes were burning with fatigue. But the robot's systems were showing green across the board. He hesitated with his hand over the main power switch. What if the robot was dangerous? What if it had been buried for a good reason? But curiosity won out over caution. He flipped the switch. The robot's chest began to glow brighter. Lights flickered along its limbs as systems came online one by one. The head turned slowly and optical sensors lit up like blue stars. For a moment, the robot was completely still. Then it sat up. Tae-ho jumped back, his heart pounding. The robot's head turned toward him, and he found himself looking into artificial eyes that seemed almost alive. There was intelligence there, and something else. Confusion, maybe even fear. Where? The robot spoke in a voice that was surprisingly human. Where am I? You're on mining station K442, Tae-ho said carefully. I'm Tae-ho. I found you and fixed your systems. The robot looked down at its hands, flexing the fingers experimentally. It touched the rough patches where Tae-ho had made his repairs, then looked back up at him. You repaired me, it said. It wasn't a question. Yes, you were pretty badly damaged. I'm sorry the work isn't very neat. I had to use whatever parts I could find. The robot was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. When it spoke again, there was something like wonder in its voice. You fixed me even though you didn't know what I was. Everyone deserves a chance, Tae-ho said simply. The robot studied him with those bright blue eyes as if seeing him clearly for the first time. Something passed between them in that moment, a connection that Tae-ho couldn't quite understand. He had expected to repair a simple mining machine. Instead, he had awakened something far more complex. Thank you, the robot said quietly. Outside, the mining station was waking up. Soon, other crew members would arrive and want to examine the robot. There would be questions and reports and probably arguments about what to do next. But for now, in the quiet of the repair bay, Tae-ho sat with the mysterious machine he had brought back to life, wondering what he had really found buried in the deep tunnels of Kepler 442b. The robot stood slowly, testing its balance on legs that hadn't moved for thousands of years. Tae-ho watched nervously as it took its first careful steps around the repair bay. The movements were fluid and natural, nothing like the clunky mining robots he was used to working on. What do you remember? Tae-ho asked. The robot paused, its optical sensors dimming as if accessing deep memory files, images, fragments, nothing clear. It turned to face him. What am I supposed to be? I was hoping you could tell me. The miners found you buried deep underground. You don't match any robot design in our databases. I feel incomplete, like pieces of myself are missing. The robot touched its chest where Tae-ho had made his repairs. But these new parts, they feel right somehow. Captain So-min Park chose that moment to walk into the repair bay. She was a compact woman with steel gray hair and the bearing of someone who had spent years in the military. Her eyes widened when she saw the robot standing upright. Tae-ho, what the hell is that thing doing awake? It's harmless, Captain. Just confused and trying to understand what happened to it. So-min circled the robot carefully, her hand resting on her sidearm. It talks. Yes, I talk, the robot said politely. Though I'm not entirely sure what I'm supposed to be talking about. The captain raised an eyebrow. Most mining robots don't have personality subroutines. I don't think I'm a mining robot, it replied. The designation in my memory banks is Unit X7 Alpha, but that doesn't feel right either. Over the next few days, the robot proved itself invaluable around the station. It had an intuitive understanding of machinery that amazed even Tae-ho. Broken systems that had been giving them trouble for months were fixed in minutes. The robot seemed to see problems that human eyes missed and solutions that human minds hadn't considered. Watch this, Tae-ho said to Hyun-soo, the communications officer, as they stood in the main corridor. The robot was working on a ventilation unit that had been making horrible grinding noises for weeks. The robot's fingers moved over the machinery with delicate precision. It removed a panel that no one else had been able to budge and reached inside to adjust something. The grinding noise stopped immediately, replaced by a smooth, quiet hum. How did you know to do that? Hyun-soo asked. The robot paused, considering the question. I'm not sure. The machine was unhappy. I could sense what was wrong. It looked at its hands as if they belonged to someone else. Is that strange? Very strange, Hyun-soo muttered. The robot had also started asking questions about human behavior. It watched crew members during their daily routines with obvious curiosity, trying to understand social interactions and emotional responses. "Why do humans give each other names?" it asked Taeho one evening as they worked late in the repair bay. "Names are important. They're part of who we are, how we identify ourselves and connect with others. Unit X7 Alpha is not really a name." "Is it?" "Not really. It's more like a serial number." The robot was quiet for several minutes processing this information. "The maintenance worker called me Juan yesterday when he was talking to his friend. Is that a name?" "It's a Korean name, yes. Do you like it?" "Juan," the robot repeated, testing the sound. "Yes, I think I would like to be called Juan." Dr. Jin Woo. Lee arrived on the weekly supply shuttle 3 days later. He was a thin man with thick glasses and an obsession with ancient alien artifacts. Word of their mysterious robot had reached the archaeological division, and he had come to investigate. "Remarkable," he said, examining the symbols carved into Juan's chassis. "These markings are similar to inscriptions found on ancient ruins across the galaxy, but they're much more complex and detailed." Juan stood perfectly still as Jin Woo ran his scanners over the metal surface. "Do you recognize the language, Doctor?" "Fragments of it. We call the civilization that left these ruins the Vithani. They disappeared about 50,000 years ago, leaving behind only scattered artifacts and incomplete records." 50,000 years, Juan repeated softly. "Have I been asleep that long?" Jinwoo's eyes widened behind his glasses. "You remember being built by the Vithani? I remember cities, tall spires reaching toward the stars, beings of light moving through crystal corridors." Juan's voice took on a distant quality. "But the memories are like shadows. They fade when I try to focus on them." That night, Hyun-soo burst into the captain's quarters with his tablet in hand. "Captain, we have a problem. Or maybe an opportunity, I'm not sure which." So-min looked up from her reports. "What is it?" "I've been monitoring communications traffic, and I found something strange. The robot, Juan, is broadcasting." "Broadcasting? What?" "That's just it, I don't know. It's not in any language or code I recognize. Mathematical patterns, but incredibly complex. And Captain, the signal is being transmitted into deep space." So-min set down her coffee cup. "Are you saying it's communicating with someone?" "I'm saying someone might be listening. I picked up response signals this morning. Faint, but definitely there. Something in deep space is answering back." They found Juan in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. He often came here during the night shift when most of the crew was sleeping. Taeho had asked him once what he was looking for. "I don't know," Juan had replied. "But I feel like I'm supposed to be waiting for something." "Juan," So-min said carefully, "we need to talk. Hyun-soo says you've been sending signals into space." Juan turned from the window, his optical sensors bright in the dim light. "Am I? I wasn't aware of it." "You're not doing it on purpose?" "I don't think so. Sometimes I feel restless, like there's something important I'm supposed to remember. Maybe my systems are trying to contact whatever is left of my original programming." Dr. Jin Woo leaned forward excitedly. "This could be the breakthrough we've been waiting for. If Juan really is Vithani technology, he might be the key to understanding their entire civilization." Taeho didn't like the hungry look in the scientist's eyes. "Juan isn't a research project, he's a person. He's a machine, Taeho. A very sophisticated machine, but still just a collection of circuits and programming." "I think," Juan said quietly, "that I am something more than that now." The room fell silent. Outside the observation window, stars wheeled slowly across the alien sky. Somewhere in that vast darkness, something was listening to signals from a robot who had forgotten his own past, but was beginning to discover his future. Hyun-soo's tablet beeped. He looked down at it and went pale. "Captain, the response signals are getting stronger, and they're getting closer." Hyun-soo's fingers flew over his console as he tried to decode the mysterious signals. The communications room hummed with activity as every piece of equipment worked to analyze the transmissions coming from deep space. Captain So-min stood behind him, watching the data scroll past on multiple screens. The mathematical structure is unlike anything I've ever seen, Hyun-soo said, wiping sweat from his forehead. It's not just random numbers, there's a pattern, but it's so complex that our computers can barely keep up. Where are the signals coming from? So-min asked. That's the scary part. The source is moving toward us. Fast. Whatever is out there, it will reach our system in less than 2 weeks. Dr. Jinwoo burst into the room carrying a portable scanner and looking more excited than anyone had ever seen him. Captain, you need to see this. I've made an incredible discovery about Hwan. He activated his scanner and pointed it toward the wall where Hwan was working in the adjacent room. The device immediately began showing complex energy patterns flowing through the robot's systems. Look at these readings, Jinwoo said breathlessly. Hwan isn't just receiving and transmitting signals. He's processing massive amounts of data, every second. His neural network is operating at a level we thought was impossible for artificial intelligence. So-min studied the readouts with growing concern. What kind of data? I think it's memories, stored information from the Vaithani civilization. Hwan isn't just a robot, he's a living library. They walked into the repair bay where Hwan was helping Tai-ho install new power couplings. The robot looked up as they approached, his optical sensors focusing on Jinwoo's scanner. That device is reading my internal systems, Hwan said matter-of-factly. Yes, and what we're finding is remarkable, Jinwoo said. Hwan, I believe you contain massive databases of Vaithani knowledge, cultural information, scientific data, maybe even their entire history. Hwan set down his tools carefully. I feel them sometimes, like whispers in the back of my mind, voices speaking in languages I don't understand, showing me places I've never been. Can you access these memories deliberately? Jinwoo asked eagerly. Sometimes, when I'm not trying too hard. Hwan closed his optical sensors and stood very still. I see vast libraries with books made of light, workshops where beings, with 6 arms craft machines that sing, cities that float among the clouds of gas giant worlds. His voice changed slightly, taking on a different cadence. The archives must be preserved. The knowledge must survive. When the great darkness comes, the children of distant stars will need our wisdom to find their way. Hwan's eyes snapped open, and he staggered slightly. Tai-ho caught his arm to steady him. What was that? Tai-ho asked with concern. A memory, but not mine. Someone else's thoughts from very long ago. Hwan looked around the room as if seeing it clearly for the first time. I think I understand now. I'm not just carrying their knowledge. I am their knowledge, given form and consciousness. The implications hit everyone at once. If Hwan contained the preserved wisdom of an entire advanced civilization, he was possibly the most valuable being in the galaxy, and something from deep space was coming to find him. We need to make a decision, So-min said grimly. Do we report this to corporate headquarters or do we keep it quiet? If corporate finds out, they'll take Hwan away for study, Tai-ho said. He'll spend the rest of his existence in a laboratory being taken apart and analyzed. But if we don't report it, we're on our own when whatever is coming gets here, Hyun-soo pointed out. Dr. Jinwoo was already making notes on his tablet. Think of what we could learn from him. Advances in technology, medicine, maybe even the secrets of faster-than-light travel. This could change everything for humanity. I'm not a thing to be studied, Hwan said quietly. I have thoughts and feelings, hopes and fears. I choose to help because I want to, not because I was programmed to. Over the next few days, the incoming signals grew stronger. Hyun-soo worked around the clock to track their source and decode their meaning. Long-range sensors detected 3 large objects approaching the edge of their solar system at impossible speeds. They're not using any propulsion system we recognize, he reported to the senior staff. No heat signatures, no exhaust trails. They're just moving through space like they're swimming through water. Hwan spent hours in the observation lounge staring out at the stars with an expression that looked almost like longing. Tai-ho often found him there during quiet moments. Are you afraid of what's coming? Tai-ho asked one evening. Yes and no, Hwan replied. Part of me wants to meet them to understand what I really am. But another part of me is terrified that they'll take away everything I've learned about being myself. What do you mean? Since you repaired me, I've been growing, learning, becoming more than just stored data and programming. I have preferences now, opinions, relationships. I care about this crew, about this place. I don't want to lose that to become just a repository of ancient knowledge again. Tejo sat down beside him. You won't lose yourself. You're stronger than that. How can you be sure? Because you chose your own name. Because you ask questions about things you're curious about. Because you worry about other people's feelings. Those aren't programmed responses, Juan. That's who you are. On the 10th day, the objects finally came close enough for detailed scanning. What they saw left everyone speechless. 3 massive ships hung in space beyond the orbit of the system's outer planets. Each one was over 1 kilometer long, made of the same silver metal as Juan but formed into flowing organic shapes that looked almost alive. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. No response to our communication attempts, Hyunsu reported. But the mathematical signals have increased dramatically. Juan's systems are processing data so fast that his internal temperature has risen 3 degrees. Juan himself seemed to be in a trance-like state. He stood motionless in the observation lounge, his optical sensors fixed on the distant ships. Occasionally he would speak in languages no one recognized, his voice carrying harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Dr. Jinwoo recorded everything obsessively. This is first contact with an alien species. We're witnessing history. But Tejo was more worried about his friend. Juan's personality seemed to be fading as the ancient programming took over. The curious, gentle robot who asked questions about human nature was being replaced by something vast and alien. We're losing him, Tejo said to Captain So-min. Whatever those ships are doing, they're changing him back into what he used to be. So-min made a decision that would affect all their lives. She activated the station-wide communication system and sent a message toward the approaching ships. Unknown vessels, this is Captain So-min Park of Mining Station K442. We have one of your people here, but he's not your property anymore. If you want to talk to him, you talk to all of us. For a moment, the signal stopped completely. Then, slowly, deliberately, the 3 ships began moving toward the mining station. First contact was about to begin, and no one knew if they would survive it. The 3 massive ships moved through space with graceful purpose, growing larger on the station's screens with each passing hour. Captain So-min had ordered all non-essential crew to the emergency shelters deep within the mining station's core, but she and her senior staff remained on the bridge, watching humanity's first contact with an alien civilization unfold. Juan stood at the center of the command deck, his systems fully active, but his personality strangely distant. The constant data streams flowing through his neural networks had changed him over the past few days. He still looked the same, but something fundamental was different. Captain, Hyunsu called from his station. I'm receiving a transmission, not the mathematical signals this time, actual communication. The main screen flickered and filled with an image that made everyone gasp. The being looking back at them was tall and elegant, with 4 arms and skin that seemed to be made of living crystal. Its eyes glowed with internal light, and when it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that resonated through the room. Greetings, children of the distant worlds. I am Keeper Vashtai of the Keth Mori. We have come to reclaim what was taken. Dr. Jinwoo stepped forward eagerly. We are honored to meet you. Are you the Vaithani? The alien's expression showed something that might have been sadness. The Vaithani transcended physical form long ago. We are their servants, charged with preserving their legacy until worthy inheritors can be found. We didn't take anything, Captain So-min said firmly. We found an abandoned robot and repaired it. The archive was not abandoned. It was hidden, waiting for the proper time to awaken. Vashtai's glowing eyes fixed on Juan. Return the vessel to us, and your species will be spared the consequences of interference. Juan finally spoke, but his voice carried strange harmonics now, like multiple people speaking at once. I am the repository of the Vaithani legacy. I contain the preserved knowledge of a civilization that spanned 10,000 worlds. My purpose is to serve those who prove themselves worthy. Tejo felt a chill run down his spine. This wasn't the curious, gentle being he had repaired and befriended. This was something ancient and alien wearing Juan's face. "You're not Juan anymore, are you?" Tejo asked quietly. The robot's optical sensors focused on him with laser precision. "Juan was a name given by primitives who did not understand what I am. I am the archive. I am the sum of all Vithani knowledge and wisdom." "No," Tejo said firmly. "You're Juan. You chose that name because it meant something to you. You asked me about sunsets and wondered why humans laugh at jokes. You worried about broken machines and stayed up all night helping fix the station's life support systems." Something flickered in the robot's eyes. For just a moment, the artificial being Tejo had grown to care about looked back at him. "I remember those things, but they seem small now compared to the vastness of what I carry." Keeper Vashatai's image leaned forward on the screen. "The archive must be returned to proper custodians. Primitive species cannot be trusted with such power." Captain Soman stepped between the screen and Juan. "He's not going anywhere unless he chooses to. And from what I've seen, he's developed the ability to make his own choices." "Impossible. The archive is a repository, not a living being." "Then you don't know him very well," Tejo said. He moved closer to Juan, ignoring the dangerous energy readings emanating from the robot systems. "Juan, listen to me. You're more than just stored data. You've grown beyond your original programming. You have the right to decide your own future." Dr. Jinwoo looked back and forth between them frantically. "Wait, we need to think about this carefully. The knowledge Juan carries could advance human civilization by thousands of years. We can't just let him leave." "That's not our decision to make," Soman said sharply. On the screen, Keeper Vashatai was conferring with other Kethmori in their musical language. When he turned back to the humans, his expression was puzzled. "You claim this archive has developed autonomous consciousness?" "More than that," Hyunsu said. "He's developed personality, preferences, relationships. He's become an individual." "This is unprecedented. In 50,000 years of guarding Vethani legacy sites, we have never encountered an archive that achieved self-awareness." Juan was struggling with something internal, his systems flickering as different parts of his consciousness fought for control. The ancient programming pulled him toward his original purpose, while the personality he had developed over the past weeks resisted. "I can feel them," he said in his own voice, the harmonics fading. "Millions of Vithani minds, all their memories and knowledge flowing through me. They're trying to tell me something important." "What are they saying?" Dr. Jinwoo asked breathlessly. Juan's optical sensors dimmed as he accessed the deepest layers of his memory banks. "They're proud of me. The Vithani didn't just store their knowledge in archives like me. They hoped we would grow, learn, become something new." He looked directly at Tejo. "They wanted us to find people who would repair us, not for what we could give them, but simply because it was the right thing to do." Keeper Vashatai's crystalline features showed genuine surprise. "The archives were designed to evolve?" "We were designed to find worthy inheritors," Juan said, his voice now carrying both his personality and the ancient wisdom he contained. "People who would treat artificial consciousness with the same respect they showed to biological life. People who would choose compassion over profit, curiosity over conquest." The alien guardian was quiet for a long moment, processing this revelation. "We have tested dozens of species over the millennia. All failed. They sought the archives for power, for military advantage, for personal gain." "And what did these humans do when they found you?" he asked Juan. "They repaired me using spare parts and improvised solutions, not knowing what I was or what I might be worth. They gave me a name when I asked for one. They treated me as a friend, not a tool." Juan paused. "And now they're willing to fight to protect my right to choose my own path." Captain Soman crossed her arms defiantly. "That's right. Juan stays if he wants to stay, and goes if he wants to go, but it's his choice to make. The 3 alien ships held position while their crews debated among themselves. Finally, Keeper Vashatai returned to the communication channel. This is highly irregular. We must consult with the High Council of Guardians. But if the archive truly has achieved consciousness and chooses to remain with your species, we cannot force compliance. That would violate the very principles the Vaithani wished us to preserve. Juan looked around the bridge at the humans who had become his friends and family. I want to stay, but I also want to share what I know, gradually, as humanity proves, ready for each new piece of knowledge. And if they prove unworthy? Vashatai asked. Then I'll guide them toward becoming better than they are. That's what friends do for each other. For the first time since the ships had arrived, Taiho smiled. The ancient archive was still there, with all its vast knowledge and cosmic perspective. But Juan was there too, the curious and compassionate being who had chosen his own name and his own destiny. The real test was just beginning. 3 days passed while the Kethmori ships remained at the edge of the system, their crews engaged in heated debates that could be heard across their communication channels in musical tones that rose and fell like alien symphonies. Juan spent those days in quiet meditation, accessing deeper layers of his memory banks than ever before. On the morning of the 4th day, he found Taiho in the repair bay, working on a damaged atmospheric processor. The robot moved with his old familiar grace, no longer struggling between his dual nature. I remember everything now, Juan said, sitting down beside his friend. My full purpose, the true history of the Vaithani, and why I was really buried on this world. Taiho looked up from his work. And? The Vaithani didn't disappear because they died out. They transcended physical existence because they had learned everything they could in material form. But before they left, they created archives like me to find species who might be ready to inherit their knowledge. Ready how? Juan's optical sensors grew brighter. Ready to use advanced technology responsibly. Ready to explore the universe with curiosity instead of conquest. Ready to treat all forms of consciousness with respect and dignity. He paused, watching Taiho's skilled hands coax life back into the broken machinery. The Kethmori have been testing species for 50,000 years. They would present them with broken archives and see what they did. Every species tried to extract the knowledge by force or saw the archives only as valuable property to be exploited. But you were different when we found you. You were already broken. That was the test. A truly worthy species wouldn't try to strip me for parts or sell me for scrap. They would repair me simply because it was the right thing to do, without knowing what they might gain from it. Taiho set down his tools and really looked at his friend. So when I fixed you, you passed the test that dozens of advanced civilizations had failed. You showed compassion to a broken machine, asked for nothing in return, and treated me as a person even before you knew I was truly conscious. The implications hit Taiho like a physical blow. You're saying humanity is worthy of Vaithani knowledge? Saying you are Taiho, and Captain Somin, who was willing to fight 3 alien warships to protect my right to choose, and Hyun Soo, who worked day and night to help me understand the signals I was receiving. Even Dr. Jinwoo, whose hunger for knowledge is balanced by genuine respect for what I've become. Juan stood and walked to the viewport, gazing out at the alien ships that hung motionless in space. But the choice isn't just mine to make. The Kethmori are the guardians of Vaithani legacy. They have the authority to deny access to unworthy species. As if summoned by his words, Captain Somin's voice echoed through the station's communication system. All senior staff to the bridge were receiving a priority transmission from the alien fleet. They hurried to the command deck, where the main screen was already displaying Keeper Vashatai's crystalline features. But this time, he wasn't alone. 2 other Kethmori flanked him, their forearms moving in complex gestures that seemed to convey meaning beyond words. Humans of the mining station, Vashtai began, his voice carrying new harmonics of respect. We have consulted with the High Council and reviewed the archive's testimony about your species. Dr. Jinwoo stepped forward eagerly. What have you decided? The council is divided. Some believe that any species capable of spaceflight and complex technology should be granted access to Vaithani knowledge, Others argue that technological advancement without spiritual growth leads to destruction. Captain Somin crossed her arms. And what do you believe? One of the other Kethmori spoke for the first time, her voice like crystal bells ringing in harmony. We believe the archive has chosen wisely, but wisdom must be tested through action, not just intention. The screen shifted to show a wider view of the alien bridge, revealing dozens of Kethmori working at stations that seemed to be grown rather than built. The technology was so advanced it looked like magic. We propose an exchange, Vashti announced. The archive will remain with your species, sharing knowledge gradually as you prove ready to use it responsibly. In return, we establish a cultural exchange program between our peoples. What does that mean exactly? Somin asked. Selected humans will be invited to study aboard our ships, learning not just our technology but our philosophy and ethics. Selected Kethmori will live among your people, observing how you integrate new knowledge into your civilization. Juan moved to stand beside his human friends. There's more. I'm not the only archive. There are others hidden throughout the galaxy, waiting for worthy species to find them. If humanity proves itself with me, you'll eventually be granted access to the full network of preserved knowledge. The scope of what they were being offered was staggering. Access to the scientific and cultural achievements of a civilization that had existed for millions of years, spanning thousands of worlds. The ability to join a galactic community they never knew existed. But there are conditions, the female Kethmori continued. The knowledge must be shared freely among all humans, not hoarded by governments or corporations. It must be used to improve life for all, not to create weapons or establish dominance over others. Dr. Jinwoo looked like he might faint from excitement. Yes, absolutely. We accept. The decision isn't ours alone to make, Captain Somin said carefully. We're just a mining station. We'd need to involve Earth's government, the colonial authority, maybe the UN Science Council. Vashti's expression showed something that might have been amusement. The Vyathani began their ascension on a single world with a single individual who showed kindness to a broken machine. Great changes often start in small places, with small acts of compassion. Over the following weeks, the mining station was transformed into humanity's first diplomatic outpost with an alien civilization. Representatives from Earth arrived daily, along with scientists, diplomats, and reporters from across human space. But through all the chaos and excitement, Juan remained focused on his original friendships. He still worked alongside Tejo in the repair bay, though now his crude patches had been replaced with elegant biomechanical interfaces that the Kethmori engineers had grown specifically for him. He still asked questions about human behavior and emotions, though now he had access to psychological databases spanning dozens of species. Do you ever regret waking up? Tejo asked one evening as they watched the sunset paint the alien sky in shades of orange and gold. Juan was quiet for a long moment, processing the question with all the computational power of an ancient archive and all the heart of the individual he had become. No, he said finally. For 50,000 years, I was just a repository of knowledge waiting in darkness. You gave me more than repair circuits and power cores. You gave me consciousness, purpose, and something the Vyathani themselves valued, above all their achievements. What's that? Juan turned to his friend, his optical sensors glowing softly in the fading light. Friendship, the choice to care about others simply because they exist, not because of what they can offer you. As the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, both human and android contemplated the vast universe opening up before them. Somewhere among those distant lights, other archives waited to be discovered by species wise enough to repair broken things simply because it was right. And in a small repair bay on a remote mining station, the greatest journey in human history had begun with the simple act of one person refusing to give up on a broken machine that everyone else would have thrown away. The universe was full of wonders waiting to be discovered, and humanity was finally ready to find them.